Hi everyone, Sandra here at Homesteading Ways, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making marinara sauce, and more importantly we're going to be canning it up so we have plenty of it on hand in the future. Let's get started. To start off with, in this bowl here I have just under 15 pounds of tomatoes. I already skinned them, de-seeded them as well as I could by hand, and then I just broke them apart. These are not all Roma or sauce tomatoes. A lot of them are just your regular slicing tomatoes, but that's what I had, so I like a mixture anyhow. And then over here, to get started, I'm going to leave some of these other ingredients out at the moment, but we're going to do 1 large onion chopped. Use whatever onion you like. And then here I have 4 large cloves of garlic chopped up, roughly. I like a little bit more of a chunky marinara, so that works for me. So the first thing we're going to do is grab some olive oil and get going on the garlic and onions. Okay, so we're going to start off with a tablespoon or 2 of a little olive oil, and I'm putting it in my big stock pot that I'm going to be putting the tomatoes in. And I have the heat on, I'd say about medium to medium low. And I'm just going to add in, to start with, the onions, not the garlic, just the onions. We're going to stir these around just a little bit for about a minute or 2. Just want to get them a little warmed up and broken up a little bit before I add the garlic. Okay, now I'm going to add the garlic. Get it all in there. Now with the garlic, you can decide exactly how much you want, if you want more or less of it. I like a lot of garlic. So I'm just going to stir this around for, I'd say, probably 4 or 5 minutes. And you got to make sure to keep stirring it because you don't want your garlic to burn. If need be, turn your heat down. And I'll be back. Okay, now it's time to get our tomatoes in there. And I did turn the heat down a little bit, but once the tomatoes are all in the pot, we're going to turn it up again. Okay, now that they're all in, I'm just going to stir this around to try and distribute some of those onion and garlic. And then we're going to turn the heat up to medium high. And I'm going to put the lid on this pot here so that the tomatoes can cook down fairly quick. That's a relative term. Without scorching or anything. There's plenty of liquid in here. You don't need to add any. So okay, we're going to get the lid on, we're going to turn the heat up, and we're going to let these go for about a half an hour or so. And we'll of course check them, make sure to stir them here and there, just because you don't want any sticking or scorching. But I'll be back in a half hour. Alright, so while that's heating up and we're waiting this half hour, I'm going to go ahead and chop up the herbs I want to put in my sauce. So to start with, I've got a little bit of thyme here, and a little bit of thyme goes a long way. So I'm only using, I don't know how much you would even think, like a teaspoon or a little bit more of fresh thyme. So I'm just going to chop that up. Now, if you don't have fresh, go ahead and use dry. That's fine too. Just use the measurements in half. You know, cut them in half because dried is stronger. And I grew all this myself, so I might as well use it, right? So there we go. There's your thyme. And then this is oregano, and I'm not sure. I picked all of this yesterday, so I don't think I'm going to use all of that. I'm going to actually pull this off the stem. Just the leaves I want. You can add however much of whatever spices you want. This is what I like to use. Sometimes I even throw in a bay leaf or two. Go ahead and do what you like. So I'm just going to chop this up a little bit. This is going to taste so great this winter, you guys. You're going to be tasting summer all over again. It's going to be wonderful. So I'm putting that over there. I might add more. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it right now. And then here, of course, is rosemary. I like rosemary, but it like thyme, you know, you don't want to use too much of it. So I'm only going to use a small amount. That much. That's more than enough, I think, of rosemary. And I don't know, to me this looks like almost a tablespoon. I don't know if I want to, well, don't worry, I'll have the exact measurements of stuff down in the description box, so go ahead and take a look there. You know, so many times we cook with just, you know, by, oh, this much or that, and you're tasting and whatever, and you don't really think about the measurements. But I usually try to get those worked out good, so you guys have a general idea after you watch the video. So that's plenty right there. We're just going to sit there and let it rest until it's ready to put in the pot. Okay, it's been about a half an hour, so I'm going to be adding to this about 3 tablespoons of loosely packed brown sugar. Works really well with tomatoes. And then we're going to add, I'd say about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, depending on your likes of black pepper. I'm doing around a half. And then a teaspoon, well, let's say 2 teaspoons of salt. And you can use coarse salt. I'm using canning salt. Just don't want to use table salt if you can help it. We're just going to stir that up. They're already cooking down pretty nicely. I've been breaking them up a little bit. I mean, obviously there's still some really big ones in there. But, okay, we're going to let this go another half hour and then I'll be back. Okay, so now after this half hour, we're going to add in our herbs. Let's get them, oh, and I measured them out. The oregano was just over a tablespoon. The thyme was half a teaspoon, and the rosemary was, I think that was a half a teaspoon too, maybe closer to a teaspoon. And, you know, just taste test this as it goes along and see what it needs in your opinion. So it's doing good, but they're not breaking up as quickly as I would like, so I'm going to take my immersion blender and break up some of those. If you want, you can go ahead and put this in a blender if you don't have an immersion mixer, or just keep watching it, and as it cooks down, they'll break up some more. And like I said, I like it a little more on the chunky side, so I'm not gonna break up everything, just most. Make sure to always keep this under the liquid. I'm just trying to feel around for where the biggest chunks are. I like adding the herbs a little bit later in the sauce because then it ends up tasting just really fresh, like the tomatoes, like summertime. Let's see if I can find, yeah, see. I'll try and get these last few, wow, pieces. I can always do this again later too if I find there's too many chunks. But right now it's looking good. And we're going to let this go. We're going to stir it here and there for about an hour. Okay, you guys, the sauce is done, and I'm actually on my last jar, I think. So you're going to use 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. You really need to get that acid up there. And I really debated, should I do quarts or pints? But I finally went with the quarts because even though I'm just feeding primarily me and my son, I do still occasionally have people over for dinner, and sometimes I still cook big because then I can freeze my leftovers for future dinners or, you know, lunches. So anyhow, that's why I'm going with the quarts. And I tasted this, and oh my goodness, it is so good, you guys. It just has this beautiful, fresh flavor of tomatoes. And that's specifically why I went light on all of the ingredients other than the tomatoes, because I wanted that super fresh taste to it, even in the middle of winter. And when you open your jars, you can, you know, add whatever you like to it. More spices, more herbs, you know, mushrooms, meatballs, whatever you want to add to it. It's your thing. So, yeah, I plan on using this for a lot of recipes, not just as a sauce for pasta. And if there's any left over, I think tonight I might use a little on some chicken. So anyhow, I'm going to get the last of this filled up. And if you did do pints, then you're going to process these at for 35 minutes. If you're doing quarts like I am, then you're going to go for 40 minutes. I forgot to mention, when you're canning these up, when you're filling your jars, you want a ½ inch of headspace. Okay, everyone. They're out of the canner and ready to go, but I kept one of the quarts out for myself for this week, me and my son, and we've already started dipping into it. But I want to show you guys. Can you see this? That looks so good. It's hot. This stuff is really, really good. You're gonna love it. It's just so light and fresh, you know, like fresh tomatoes, and it's not heavy at all. It's just really good. I can see this week I'll probably put in some mushrooms and some Parmesan in there, and it'll be perfect. Even if you don't can this, make sure you make the marinara. I really think you and your family are gonna love it. It's just delicious. Anyhow, if you liked the video, make sure to thumbs up it. That would be great. And as always, it was nice talking to you. And you take care.